Hello, everyone. I'm Mike Toledo, your host on Dent Time PDR, a podcast about PDR training, tutorials, interviews, and much more. So get something to eat, drink, and start pushing. It's time to listen. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to podcast number 9. This is a very interesting podcast because we cover a little bit of bases on everything. If you're a new PDR tech, there are some things that you would want to have a checklist with. As Dave, you'll hear Dave talk about this checklist. It's pretty good awareness on his end. So if you are looking for a trainer, and I'm not just referring to myself, I'm talking about if you're in, like, say, Australia or different parts of the world, maybe you're across country and you're just looking other options besides myself or someone else, at least you have a little bit of foundation. Now, if you're a veteran tech, we're going to talk about a little bit of, again, everything. We're going to have to talk about some wholesale, how to keep that account. What are some of the ways that can help you better sustain being relevant in the wholesale market? And we are not going to overlap what Dave Schaulat, who's our guest. He was on the last podcast, podcast 129 on PDR Tool Time. I did not have a chance to get on there, but I really encourage you to go on there. He drops tons of great ideas, motivation, and incentives, and all kinds of things about the wholesale market, which I personally thought was a total loss. And then I heard that podcast, and I was had just a really good feeling and hope for that industry part of the industry. So check that podcast out. You really like it. Meanwhile, I'm going to have him on as a guest, and we are going to cover a lot of cool things about the industry. So I hope you guys stay tuned and listen to this. So I'd like to give you guys a tech tip here. So most of you veteran techs know this. Some of you newbies don't, and some who's been in the business for a long time wants to hear how I finished the kind of I wouldn't say algorithm, but the little formula that I use to help me finish a deep dent. First, if it's a bigger dent, I will start with a soft tip. The great thing about a soft tip is that you're able to push a lot of meat out, which is the majority of the dent, without creating unwanted high spots. Now, this is where it gets tricky for some people because they think that they can finish, or they want to finish, the whole dent or the deepest part of the dent with a soft tip. The only thing about a soft tip, though, is when you are pushing against the panel, especially towards the center, that you're no longer actually pushing the center of that point of the dent up. You're actually pushing the shoulders up, and you create a volcano. So if you can picture a volcano, right? Kind of a mountain, right? But the pit is still inside. So therefore, when you go to tap down, you could cause an oil can effect, which means that the dent is either staying high or it stays low. So if you go to tap it down, it flops down, and then you go to push and it pops up. So it's never able to stay flat. So to prevent that, you need to start thinking about switching your tip, perhaps to a midpoint or a blade tip. And you want to use a cap and still protect it, or use tape like gaffer's tape or Tessa tape. That will help prevent more highs, okay? But you'll still get more of a direct and firm push. Then as the dent even gets smaller, now I'm talking, you're going to have to do a series of tapping down back and forth to open it up. And remember, you have to make it bigger in order to make it smaller in most cases when you are working a sharp, deep pit. Then from there, you want to remove the cap and tape, and then start working with the bare metal where you can get direct contact into that pit and start working it and closing that center up nice and tight, and then tapping it back down. The also thing is, if you're going to use aluminum, the soft tip is out of the question. I would definitely go directly with a midpoint blade tip, or directly with a pick or sharp tip to finalize, or even start it with that. I know I'm sounding confusing, but let's recap this. Soft tip, then midpoint. In between those steps, you're going to tap down. Then you're going to remove the cap or tape, go bare metal, tap down again, and then grab a pick or a very sharp tip and see if you can finalize that out. Right there, you're trying to match the orange peel and go back and forth and repeat that process as necessary. If it's aluminum, you probably want to go skip. You'll definitely want to skip the soft tip part, go into a midpoint without any tape or a cap, then go directly to a pick or a sharp tip. And some guys like myself, I like to use a pick almost right away. So aluminum does have an opposite effect. So keep that in mind. I hope that helps. So let's get into the rest of this podcast. Today, man, we've got a cool guest. I'm hijacking him, man. He was back to back. This guy is becoming so popular. He's going from one podcast to another. Dave Schaulat, thank you for coming on, man. How you doing?
Hey, Mike. Fantastic. Thanks for having me. I appreciate the invitation.
I appreciate you being here. You're such an honor that you come on here because you're no bullcrap guy, man. Like everything comes out of what you say makes a lot of sense. And that's a really important thing. I mean, I want to touch base. If you guys haven't listened to the last episode with PDR Tool Time, Dave laid it down, man, about wholesale, and those guys know that we're just going to briefly touch about that. Then we're going to talk about today's show is about if you're a new tech or you're thinking about becoming PDR tech, what do you need to look for as a trainer? And then we're going to go into as a PDR tech, if you're already in a PDR tech, what you should be doing based on me and Dave's advice. What do you think you should be doing? What you should be doing like now and what you should have been doing yesterday, because a lot has changed. And that's why I'm mentioning that PDR Tool Time podcast, because if you're in the wholesale market or if you're in the retail market, there's some things, some eye-opening subjects that you touched on there, Dave. So we will touch up on there later on in this podcast, but go listen to that podcast. It is a handful of information, which really, really was good. So I appreciate you letting everybody hear that.
I'm passionate about the industry and I love what I do. I've been in the business a long time, but whether you're new or old, you've got to still have that fire and that drive. And I hope maybe we can convey that as well as a part of, with the additional information we're going to get into. But you jump in, and I get up every morning and I cannot wait to get to work because I'm going to ridicule what I'm about to say. I'm in a position to say it. I have the coolest job in the world. It is the best.
Cool you mean like you love your job, but not as the heat wise. I mean, you have the hottest, coolest job, right?
I have the hottest, coolest job right now. The outside, you lay the heat gun on that on the cars sitting outside. We're pushing 175, 180 degrees surface temperature on these cars parked in the sun. You burn your legs on the seats when you get in. It's ridiculous.
I don't know how you guys do it out there, man. Seriously. I mean, I trained out in Palm Springs and I hated every second of it. I couldn't wait to go home, man. We had to do 2 segments, like doing first in the morning session and then take a few hours off and go back late in the afternoon. So that's
maybe we should go back to that. We should have siesta dent repair. Start early and then take a little break midday and then go back for a couple hours at night. Yeah.
Well, let's get right into it, Dave. Okay. I'm a PDR tech. Well, I'm a future PDR tech. I think I want to do PDR training, and this isn't to toot my own horn because I do PDR training, but I get this question a lot. Hey, Mike, you're real far away. Who do you recommend? What are some of the things I need to look for when I'm going to pick a trainer? You got some really good insight, Dave. You have a really big background in the old school days. You've been doing it since 1991, I assume, since 27 years. Is that correct?
That's correct. I got trained very late. I started my training very late in 1991. So I kind of fudged the number there because I'm really kind of into my 27th year now, but I kind of, who's counting really?
Yeah, who cares after
1991 equals, 91 from 2018 equals
25, 30, who cares,
Yeah, who cares?
So,
go ahead.
No, go ahead. Keep going. I don't mean to cut you off.
It's been a great run, a great career. I got trained by Dent Wizard and I was trained by Lido in Miami when the company was based there. And so I think, and then again, as my career continued, I had opportunities where I also did some training for Dent Wizard using their process and their methods. And so I've got a little insight, I think, that'll help with that. I did some training in Europe as well. as Miami, and when the Dent Wizard moved from Miami to the St. Louis area.
So you do have a lot of little background on that. So that's good. So what do you think? You know, there's a lot of people listening to the podcast and then they're not into PDR, but they've been thinking about it. They listen to me, they listen to PDR Tool Time. They're really trying to get the feel of the industry. So what are they looking for?
Well, they need to be committed first and foremost. They have got to look at this and understand this is an entirely different animal than what it appears to be on the surface. And by that, I mean, you or I could turn up either at our shop or at a body shop or a dealer or a customer's home and take a dent out and make it look easy. And I think because there's still this mobile aspect and a lot of guys still are very mobile, I think there's an overtone where there's still this gypsy thought that, oh, the guy's going to show up with a sack of tools and fix my dents and then move on. And so there's still kind of this overtone where the industry is still not really taken seriously. I think if you have a brick and mortar, that lends some authenticity to your business, because now people think, oh, hey, wait a minute, this guy's got brick and mortar, he's got a website, this is a real deal. Whereas if you're still a mobile service technician, I don't know that there's quite that belief that it's a serious business and a serious global entity. And so I think what needs to happen, first and foremost, the young technicians need to take this very seriously. They've got to be vested in their future. And again, I can appreciate a younger mindset not being fully sure of what they want to do in life. You know, maybe they're kicking around college, maybe they're not, maybe they're kicking around trade school, working part-time, whatever it might be. But you've got to be serious about this and get in and do it and be fully committed and be the best you can be.
I agree 100% there, Dave. I couldn't agree more than that. And if you don't mind, I'm going to add to that on that wavelength. I also tell people, listen, man, if you are a type of person that starts projects in life and then doesn't finish them, PDR is not for you. You've got to be that type of committed person where, heck, you start something, you finish it no matter what, because PDR is going to make you that type of person. It's going to really test you to see what kind of a person you are as far as being able to finish the finish line. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Your patience level and your desire to succeed and a desire for perfection at the end is what's going to that's going to set you apart from your competitors. And, you know, my statement really applies to life and any career you choose, but really very specifically to PDR.
Yeah. Yep. Well, geez, look at Vince just popped in, man. What's up, Vinny?
Hey, what's happening, gentlemen?
Hi, Vince.
We were just talking about what about like what a new guy who's coming into the industry, what kind of trainer would he look for? So, and I think you heard a little bit of that.
Proper training.
Proper training. There you go. Yes.
You've got to have a checklist, and so many people in this industry don't, regardless of whether you're the consumer or the provider. You've got to have a checklist of what you want to get out of your furthering education. Yeah. You've got to want to know you're going to the person or training center or facility that's going to give you the best results. And again, I understand there'll be a budget concern at some point, but I also have an idea for that as well that we can get into. But you've got to have this checklist, and you've got to say, you know, is yours a hands-on school? Are there video demonstrations or are there live demonstrations? Is there a classroom exercise behind the methodology of moving the metal? Are there diagrams that I can understand? If I don't get something, is my trainer going to be able to articulate in a different manner and change their teaching pattern so that I can understand the principle they're trying to show me? And then, you know, what part of it is hands-on, what part of it is a classroom and application on a blackboard, so to speak, versus application on the panel itself.
And again, I think you're hitting some really good points here too. Are you working on live cars? Or are you not? Are you working on panels that are placed there? So I think that makes a huge difference, Dave. And what you're saying right there makes a lot of sense, because it even making me think about, wow, am I covering that? Which in most of it we are. But I am, as far as the tech himself, you're right. Am I going to get support for that? Am I one of those guys that are coming into the class? How many people am I going to be trained with? And am I speaking to the trainer right then and there, or am I only speaking to him during my training? Do I have any contact with them afterwards? So a lot of that is important too, as well, if I can add that too. So
Sure. And looking back, we did a lot of work on panels that were set up, and I think a lot of training centers are that way. And then you get into the real world, and you've got a car, and you hit the brakes because you're thinking, boy, my panel at school didn't have a window in it. My panel at school was just a horizontal panel. It was a hood on a stand. Now what do I do on this quarter panel shot down by the bumper cover? How do I get to that? You've got to have this real life experience and real life hands-on access to a complete vehicle, to a real life situation.
Yeah, what I notice is that students, they'll get too used to one type of panel, and you flip them to the side panel or vertical panel, they're just completely lost. It's different, way different. Yes. Compared to you and I, we'll work on any panel. It just comes so natural to us. I guess that's why that if you most of the hail techs, if you're a full-time hail tech and that's all you're doing is hail, and then you get like maybe an 18-inch vertical crease going across the panel, they really don't enjoy doing that. Not that because the money's not good. It's just it's very awkward to them compared to what they're used to fixing. And I guess that would be the same way with the student. So.
Sure. And flip side, when I think if you make the change from being a route guy or a side panel guy mostly, regardless of your volume, and then you jump into hail, again, it's a very different animal. Cross-checking is of utmost importance, because you can walk around that car 360 degrees on a top panel and have a view of it. Whereas the door, you've got pretty much two views, either looking forward or looking backward at a downward angle. You don't have that ability to go 360 around a door, or you don't lay on the ground and look up at the door to see if anything is left. It's a different animal both ways.
It is. You're 100% right. You can't think that you can just jump into easily switch from one thing to another if you've never done the other. So I think you hit that nail on the head right there.
Yep.
Is there anything you wanted to add to that, Dave?
In terms of looking for a trainer, no. I think you've got to find somewhere reputable. You've got to be vested in your career and your future, and you need to have your checklist and think about where you want to be when the training finishes, and if you're going to have some support afterwards, and make that decision, and then execute your plan. Much like any big decision in life, you want to get your ducks in a row. You want to buy a house. You know what the steps are to buy a house. You're going to need to save up a down payment. You're going to need to be pre-approved. Your credit's going to need to be in order. You can't have outstanding credit card bills and 15 cars and boats and toys you're paying on in order to qualify for the home loan. So you have your checklist for that. Same thing in many facets of life, but certainly the PDR industry. You get your checklist, you cross it off, you make sure that you're finding everything you want. Not just the guy that's cheapest, not just the place that's the most convenient, not just the quickest. You find what's going to fit your need and your desired result for your future.
Good point. And I'm going to do a spin-off on this. Is there any room? Is the market still good? Because I'm going to leave that up to you. I mean, I listened to your last podcast, but based on your opinion, for a new PDR tech or a veteran, is there still room for the wholesale market? Is there still hope for the wholesale market?
Is there hope for the wholesale market?
Yeah.
I think the wholesale market is one that is going to have a change coming very quickly. I hope very quickly. Yes, there's room. To answer your question on a short note, yes, I believe there's room. And the reason I believe that, it's very difficult, and I'm even finding it difficult right now to make sure that I'm thoroughly servicing, and I don't do a lot of accounts. I'm very embedded in the accounts I have, but I'm kind of finding myself pulled a bit thin right now, and making sure that I service that account thoroughly in all departments and know everybody I possibly can in order to maintain that relationship for so long. And I'm kind of struggling right now because I've got a couple of things going. I've done 3 hail estimates today as an example. I took a phone call for a 4th, and this is just kind of transient hail where people are driving on vacation and they just happen to be in Colorado Springs driving through and got hit, and they reside in Phoenix and they're getting their vehicle fixed here. But my point is this: I would have rather spent my day today walking the lot at my Chrysler and Fiat store than doing hail estimates and then chasing down a handful of things that I had loose ends going. And it's a matter of trade-offs. I'll get to it and I'll get it done. But that being said, I think if we get into some deep penetration in these accounts and not just showing up, doing door dings on a used car lot and then walking out, but truly deep penetration where you're servicing the service department for any of their retail and customer pay needs, where you've got the used car manager, where you're involved if they have a body shop, where you're looking at their finance department and seeing if they're selling a warranty, if you want to get into that business or not, where you get into the lease department and you see if they want to get into a situation, a program where they solicit their lease return customers for dent repair prior to turning the car back in, maybe even running that through service in conjunction with service. There are a lot of avenues where I don't think our penetration level in the wholesale end of things, generally speaking, is that great. And so if guys could do that and get in a little bit deeper, I think that'd free up a little bit more room. But I still think there's an opportunity in a lot of places. I know Southern California is flooded. Phoenix is pretty flooded. Texas is flooded. But yes, I believe that there's room, and you need to get creative on how you do it. But there's room for guys to go get trained and come out and earn a living.
I think,
and even work your way up. You're going to have to start somewhere.
Yep.
Maybe a rock lot, and then work your way up.
Yeah. I want to touch base again on what you said. You said, get to know the managers, get to know, the service people. Basically, everybody should know you, know who you are.
Yes.
I think one of the things that I want to add to that is I have some lots too. I don't have very many either, but the ones I have, I've been servicing for over 20 years, each one of them. And I think one of the main things, and I've implement what you do as well, exactly what you do. But I think one of the best things that I was doing is I didn't really try to get to know them. I mean, I know the managers, and of course that's always a must, but you try to really get to know the owners. And if you can get to know the owners, you have a very, very high chance that you're not going to get booted like you would if you just didn't have your relationship stopped at the manager. Wouldn't you agree?
Without question. Today's I think there's some difference in some of the big markets, because there are a lot of conglomerates and acquisitions going on, but there's still going to be, even in a company like Berkshire Hathaway Automotive or Penske, and Penske's another animal, and that's another sore subject, but Berkshire Hathaway is getting into the car business, and they bought a 36 dealer group here in Phoenix, and a handful of their operations have an in-house mentality and a business model, but quite a few don't. And even in an operation that large, they're going to have regional people. You're going to have your general managers. You're going to have some that have a vested interest when the acquisition took place. And they still have a truly vested interest with Berkshire Hathaway and the old group that they were with. But even on a regional level, if you can get to know the managers there, and I've met 2 of them, it just happens. And I don't know why, but maybe I'm in the right place at the right time. Maybe I ask the right questions. Hey, who's that guy walking around? Oh, that's one of the corporate guys. Oh, well, who is it? And then you learn and you find out, oh, this is the regional collision center director for Berkshire Hathaway Automotive. he's based in Dallas, but he handles the Southwest and blah, blah, blah. And then the next thing you know, they see you working, they shake hands. These are friendly people. These are not your enemies.
Yeah.
And so even if you're in a conglomerate, you're going to have regional people, even if it's not the owner per se, you're going to have regional people that are in a position to make decisions in those markets. Matter of fact, they're the ones that, send the marching orders down to the general manager level.
Now, this is ad-libbing here, guys. I didn't really give Dave a script. I'm just asking him questions randomly here. I kind of briefed him a little bit, but here's one that I haven't talked to you about, Dave. And right off the top of your head, what do you think it takes to basically to keep that dealership, to keep that PR going with them? What do you do? What are some of the must-have things that you do besides show up and be on time, which are huge? But is there something that you do that basically gives the good impression, like, you know what, I like that guy, Dave, I want to keep him around, yada, yada? Is there anything that you do that have a formula at basically keeping those accounts loyal?
I act like me. I operate, my mother and father, my family, they raised me right, if I can say that, if that, crosses all genres, they done raise me right. And so I have a pretty strong work ethic. I like to think, and I show up and I'm with these people. I don't tell them one thing and do something else. I show up and I say, this is the deal. This is what it costs. This is what I service. This is what I do. This is how I operate. And then I stick to it. So yes, okay, I do show up. I'm on time. I'm consistent. But then I do what I say and I say what I do. And that in and of itself, I think, strip everything else out of the car business, nobody can take away then your integrity as an individual. And the people that are scums, maybe you need to fire those customers. Maybe you're going to get tossed out of that account. But the ones that value it, that understand it, that know and appreciate, and that are true, decent human beings are going to see that. They're going to see through the BS, and they're going to know that you have integrity, honesty, you care, you want to do the job right. And so, that's the biggest thing. I show up, I tell them what I can do. I inform them that, perhaps I can do some things other vendors can't. But at the end of it, I'm going to show up, I'm going to be honest, and I'm going to tell you what it is I'm going to do, and I'm going to do that.
I think
I've taken.
Go ahead, Dave.
I've taken a couple extra steps in that where I try to outperform and outservice some of my competitors, and that is almost a leap of faith. And I'll give you an example. So I'll go mobile to customers' homes on a WEO, so to speak. If the term WEO or due bill can translate across the country. So essentially, if a vehicle gets sold and work still needs to be done to the vehicle, maybe they sold it from the holding lot and it hadn't gone through reconditioning yet, but the customer really wanted that specific color. They sell it and it still has a dent. So for us in the business, it still has a dent. And so they write the customer a WEO or a due bill and says, bring it back in 30 days and we'll get your dent fixed for you. I'll go mobile to the customer's home in order to make it convenient for the customer, but then for the dealership to be the hero in that mix. And maybe it helps with their CSI a little bit and their scores. Maybe it doesn't. Who cares? And it's no skin off my back. I can coordinate it and schedule it early or late and make it my business to get to the customer. Now, within reason. Obviously, I'm not driving out of state to do anything like that, but I try and do that and just extend that. And then they know when they send me out, I'm going to be an extension of their reputation. I'm going to treat the customer fairly when I'm at their place. I'm going to show up. I'm going to be polite. I'm going to do my job. I'll show the customer the end result. And then the rest is between me and the dealership. The customer doesn't need to know anything else other than, my goodness, ABC dealership got this taken care of. They said what they were going to do. They did what they said. They said what they did. And the guy showed up. You become an extension of their reputation or of the salesperson in theory, because that's their point of contact, meaning that the retail consumer's point of contact is their salesperson. And so I've got the internal service people who handle a lot of these things in the Phoenix area. I've got them trained that they know they can count on me to do the job, do it right, be polite, courteous, professional, and it's done. And nobody, I don't want to say no one else does that, but that's an example then of why I can retain that account or things that I do above and beyond showing up on time and doing my job.
And before I'm going to answer this question and let me finish my thought, because not that you don't have to, I'm just saying I always like to touch base because you say so many good, valid points as you talk. I have to remember, I have to sit there and keep track because you keep going with such good advice. But you said, listen, I show up on time. I do my day. I'm straight up with them. I deliver what I say I'm going to do, which is important. But isn't part of that delivery about, is there a price structure that you actually create? Because we all know if we don't set our prices right, that eventually it catches up with us because we get a hard car or they give us more than a normal hard cars at a time. And now we're going, man, this sucks, and your motivation goes down. You're not charging what you're supposed to charge. And all of a sudden they go from priority list to below priority list, and everything starts snowballing because now you're not motivated to go there because you feel like you're getting take advantage of yourself. But who is that really to blame? Is that to blame the technician or the dealership for letting them do that to them? I mean, what's your thoughts on that?
Who's to blame?
Yeah, who's to blame?
Who's to blame?
Say the truth. Come on, who is
the truth is the provider is the one to blame. You are the supplier and you are the one defining the price. Yes, there's going to be some negotiation, but if they're taking advantage of a situation and you say, oh, I'm going to come in and I'm going to do every car for $40, shame on you. I don't see the value in that. And we can't operate today with the liabilities on these vehicles, dual pane windows, the electronics, the features where the cars start flagging codes if you take things apart. We can't operate at $40. That's nonsense. You can't drive to an account. Ask any accountant anywhere in the world. He'll tell you can't drive to the account for $40.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist. Manheim Auto Auctions, the biggest used car supplier in the world, has an internal fee. Every time they touch a car, it costs them $5. And they've got shuttle van full of retired guys that drive cars around the lot, park them on spot, drive them through the auction as they're being sold. Every time they touch a car, it's $5. And that's an internal cost of a van driving 100 yards to go to a holding lot to drive the cars a quarter mile or a half mile across a lot and put them in numerical order for the sale. $5 every time they touch the car.
Yep. And
so imagine driving, as a route technician, as a mobile, whatever it is. I don't care, route, retail, it doesn't matter. Imagine driving to your customer. You can't drive there for less than $65.
Man, have I opened a can of worms or what, guys?
No, you're not opening a can of worms. This is fantastic. But the point is the individual is to blame who didn't set the pricing and the parameters such that it made sense, where you have to draw a line in the sand and say, I'll fix every car, but to what extent? If I did that, I'd be up a creek, and I'll tell you why. Here's a good example. Here in Phoenix, we have what they call the monsoon season this time of year, and we have these thunderstorms that pop up out of nowhere that are incredible. And 2 days ago, we had 74 mile an hour winds clocked at one of the local regional airports. And it didn't happen 2 days ago, but it happened a couple of weeks ago where we had the same situation and a big storm popped up. And one of my dealers has a big tent out front. It's hot in the sun here, obviously in Phoenix in July. Or August now it is, isn't it? Boy, oh boy, the time's flying. But it was July then when it happened. This storm pops up and the tent gets blown over. And they've lost like 6 cars out of the deal that are literally going to be totals, because a couple of them were new cars, and these big, 2 or 2.5 inch tent pole pipes came down and went across the roof and both rails. It's going to be a write-off. I don't know how they're going to do it other than repair it and send it to the auction, but it can't be sold as a new vehicle anymore. So you have these things that happen. And if I said I'm going to fix every car for that price, there's things I can't repair. There's things that we can't do. And this is a good example of it. This is a horrible little accident that happened, and a handful of cars got damaged, and there were 3 that I did repair and could repair for them, but it certainly wasn't for that base price. And so you've got to have some lines in the sand that say within reason.
Well,
And so
Dave, once you start,
otherwise you be getting taken advantage of.
once you start low, it's very hard to get them up.
Where do you go? Where do you go from low?
Go ahead and tell your dealership, hey, you know what?
Go
I'm going to raise my prices from $40 a car to $80 a car. They're going to freaking kick you out before you can finish your sentence. So
correct. So yeah, the seller of the product is the one to blame.
There's
no two ways about it.
That's why I wanted to do it, because a lot of people complain about the dealerships, but they're the ones that put themselves in that position. So,
Exactly.
Well, I think, man, we are just going all across, man. We are getting in there.
We're getting a little away from the training and the new guys.
No. That's it. No, we're going. We're
this
touching.
Applies.
We are applying to it's a newbie / veteran thing, because we are getting the veterans involved, thinking, going, how am I? That's good points that Dave made on that, on those things, those areas. So another thing I want to touch base. What do you think about, your training just doesn't stop with just like your first trainer. Well, don't you recommend trying to learn from different things, different people? If you can afford to go to different trainers, would you, or what would you do different on that part, Dave? What's your take?
Well, I think that's a case by case. How well have you progressed? How well have you succeeded? I think an ongoing or this is my idea and I'm going to spill it out there and somebody's going to run with it. Shoot. In a continuing and advanced training, and then a combination of things, including things like you do with, shoot me now, come on, Mike.
What are you talking about?
Chime in. You're Mega Media. Sorry, yeah. Mega Media. Yeah. I wanted to call it Mobile Dent Trainer. No, Mega Media. There's ongoing ways to then better yourself, regardless of whether it's on a technical level or if it's on a business level or a marketing level. I read something, there's a book and I started to read it, and it's how to make you the guru of what you do, right? And it's along those lines. And there's a gazillion self-help books. Go to the library, get a library card and go to your local library and grab books and start reading.
Yeah.
There's amazing stuff for free. You don't even have to buy and pay. Look, we all know if you pay attention, but there's amazing things that are there at your fingertips in your local backyard. And the library is a great place to start for self-help and sales and, Zig Ziglar and all these names. But you make yourself your own guru, and you have to take that attitude, regardless of your technical abilities or training. And how now am I going to continue to grow? Do I need to grow technically? That's one thing. Do I need to grow in my penetration level at my accounts? Do I need to grow in my marketing strategy in my area? Do I need to grow my sales ability? Whatever it is, there's so much that needs to continue beyond just getting the basics of dent repair.
Do you think, let me ask you this, not new tech. Now we're going to just kind of brush on the veteran techs. Do you think a lot of guys have a problem with their self-esteem? With why do you think the fact is that they don't charge the worth of the value of what they offer, or, the service that I understand it. And I'm actually getting more and more better at doing it. And I should know better. I'm a 27-year tech, and I still catch myself being in that mindset. Sometimes not having that confidence, even though I am pretty confident. As much as I appear to be, there are some times where if I feel like that, I know a lot of techs are the same way. And I know you guys are touching based on a lot of it on price wise. But don't you think there's a problem, or a thing called self-confidence in this industry?
Is it that, or I don't know the answer, I guess, is really the right answer, but I could touch on it and speculate, I suppose.
Why do you think guys are charging too low for the value of their service? Let me just put it that way, really
I think
easy.
There's been such a push by the big wholesale customers. And by that, I mean the big dealership groups, perhaps the rental companies, a lot of things that go on in the auction business as well. There's just been this beat down price,
almost like a Walmart, right? Almost like a Walmart where they
Almost
say,
like a Walmart.
yeah,
Yeah.
like I'm going to give you all the work you want, but you're going to give me the cheapest price. And if you
Cheapest
don't
price.
deliver, out you go. Right.
And I think you just almost you get into this mentality where you're beaten down and then you just don't know where to go or how to climb out of that hole. And I'm guilty of that. I'm there. I'm like you. There's days I sit there and think, boy, why did I do that? Why how come I didn't tell him it was $275 instead of 175 or even just minor little things like that, and it's not a big deal. Nobody's going to arm wrestle me for $100, I don't think. But you know, I'm guilty of that. I came out of the auction business, the wholesale rental cars. I've been very fortunate, done a lot of things, but I think you get. I don't know that it's your own self worth. I just think it's the surroundings that you're in that you become a product of your environment, and all of a sudden you deal with Enterprise, who's got they're the largest purchaser of cars in the world, and all of a sudden they've got 25,000 cars in Phoenix, or 30,000 cars in Chicago or something in their rental fleet, and they flip that fleet 2, 3, 4 times a year. Do the math on that and how many cars you're facing, and then they just beat the snot out of you and their suppliers and everything else on price because they have the volume. And so I think you become a product of that environment more than it is self-esteem or self-worth,
Yeah.
because you're dealing with these behemoths, and then that mentality carries over, and people change positions, and maybe a guy that was at Enterprise moves over to Auto Nation, or my point, in that transient automotive culture, and that just continues, and they act like they can do that. And I don't know that it's self-worth or self-esteem, but I think you were a product of that environment.
Well, I think it's a little bit of both. I think
Maybe it is.
you hit some nail on the head there. I mean, you have a choice. Everything comes down to the choice. I guess the word would be conditioned, right? You're kind of
Right. You become
conditioned.
conditioned. Yeah. You're Pavlov's dog, or Stockholm syndrome, or something, like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Ring the bell and the dog salivates, because he knows he's going to get a cookie.
Well,
So
I mean, I really really enjoyed that podcast that you did the other day on PDR Tool Time. If you guys haven't listened to it, I don't know what podcast number it is, but I'll put it in my show notes and I'll link to it. I think people should really listen to that. Go ahead.
it's 129, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
All right. Well, if it's on Dave, he said 129.
Oh
So
boy.
I'll put the link on the
Where's
show
Vinny?
notes.
Vinny, chime back in. Where are you?
No, he bounced out, man. So he's like, Mike's got this, man. He had enough of you. So
Yeah, he's done. Yeah, we're done. We're done.
you know what, Dave? I mean, it's always a super pleasure because I talk to you, and when you and I talk, man, it's like I don't even know where the time goes. I've talked to you a couple times. We at Mobile Tech Expo, and we sit there and we've talked. I think we've talked the whole through the midnight one time, just chit chatting on specifics.
I was trying to crash your dinner table that night, last year at MTE at the Italian place next door, and I was, but you guys had the table, you all locked hands and circled the wagons. I couldn't get over there and continue with you.
Is there any tips that you could mention? How do you stay organized? Are you pretty organized? You look, based on your cart you showed me on the lot, you look like you're pretty organized. But I'm not talking about tools. I'm just talking like organized. Like, what do you use as invoices? What do you do? What's your go-to app, or do you have price guides too? What's going on with that?
I have several things that I do and that I use and I implement, and I rely on my calendar on my iPhone so much. So when a customer calls and says, "Hey, listen, I need you at 2:00 on Wednesday next week," the first thing I do is put in what I'm doing next week, Wednesday at 2:00. Period. End of discussion. I live and die by my calendar. And I think that's foremost. And I've got my set schedule with the 2 or 3 dealers that I service on a regular basis. I've got them in on a reminder every week. It pops up in my calendar, and so that's one thing. Invoicing wise, and John Renstrom is going to hang me on this one, and that's okay. I'm using QuickBooks Online. I just switched to that. Prior to that, I'd been using QuickBooks on my laptop. Carry my laptop and type up my invoices as such. The neat thing is that I believe there's still a lot of people using handwritten invoices, and these are going to be your cheap guys. They just And boy, I don't mean to pick on anyone. I'm very sorry about that. But, these are going to be the guys that are really not vested. Back to my statement, if you want to get into this industry, get in and be vested, though, in your future and in your career and in your business. And these are, the guys that are still handwriting chicken scratch, and you can't tell if the stock number is a letter B or a number 8. Guess what? You're getting passed up. And so, I walk in, I've got my laptop I can use with QuickBooks on it. I type up my invoices. I've got a mobile mobile cordless, no, that's not
Printer.
A mobile rechargeable printer. It's not cordless per se. And the next thing you know, I'm spitting out my invoices on a company letterhead with my logo and phone number and website on it. And I walk in and here's what you've got to sign. I can go get a purchase order and so on. And the customers are like, this is amazing. How'd you do this? The touch-up guy comes in with a bunch of chicken scratch scribbled all over the place, right? And so Mobile Tech RX is a great thing, and it's on my to-do list. I swear to God it is. John, I love you, but it's on my to-do list. But I literally, in the last 2 weeks, finally switched over to mobile, the mobile version of QuickBooks Online. And it's not without its hiccups because I'm adapting to it.
Yeah.
But I want to be able to do it all from my phone. I don't have to lug my laptop, and it's not a big one. It's a little tiny MacBook Air, but it's not a big laptop. But I want to do it all from my phone and have everything we do so much with our phones. It's right there in your fingertips.
Yeah.
Why not do that? So in conjunction with that, my knowledge of the price guide, both Paul Corden's retail and then the wholesale pricing structure that I set out in that last podcast you're so kind to refer back to. I know what's in there and I know it backwards and forwards. And if not, I can refer to it because I have copies of it, both, retail and wholesale based on where I am with my customers and their volume. But I'll run and gun. And I'm at the point now, I'm emailing everyone their invoices. So I'm very organized that way. And if someone calls or accounting calls and says, I need a copy of such and such, I'm immediately able to do that. And I've always been immediately able to do it with my laptop with me. But if I can do it from my phone, it's even that much more convenient. But staying organized, I live and die by my calendar. I have a pretty set schedule, a couple of days a week where I service the heck out of my accounts. And then I fill in with my body shop and then the individual retail customer referrals I get from my wholesale accounts. And I stay organized that way. And the other thing I do, I'm still old school. I carry a little briefcase with me. And in the back, I've got my proof of insurance. I've got all this on PDF as well. I can email it. But in the back, I've got a printed out copy of my proof of insurance, my pricing guide, my electric vehicle hybrid certificate. I've got all these things organized, in the back of my briefcase in a little binder section. And so I've got all this stuff ready to go. So in terms of staying organized, that's it. I mean, I could grab my backpack and leave. If you told me, Mike, hey, I got a set of tools, just get your butt over here, I need help, I'll grab my backpack or my briefcase, slide my laptop, my phone in there, and I'm off and I'm good.
Yeah.
And I think staying organized, tool wise, making sure your batteries are charged, you cannot afford to miss a beat and still stay on top of your game.
Well, hey, and I overheard on the podcast, and I feel the same way as what you've mentioned. It's a business, right?
It's a business.
You have a business. Treat it like a business. You're organized. You should have systems in place, and treat it like a business. Some guys just show up like it's a job, which it is a job to them. That's all it's going to be to them. But if you really want to get somewhere, you got to treat it like a business and respect it. So I highly agree with what you just said too as well.
And that's why I say you have to be vested in it and invested in so many ways. You got to believe in it and do it. I don't care what career it is. I don't care if you're tending bar. You've got to believe in what you're doing and jump in and be vested in it and know, hey, I've got the best cocktail strainer out there. I'm going to make the best cocktail. I'm going to, whatever it is. I have the system that works. I have the proper equipment, and I'm ready to go and do the job.
Right. Believe in yourself. As I mentioned, it's part of the believing. Stop being conditioned into the old stuff, you veteran techs. Yes. It takes a while to get over this hump, man. I know, but not just in what you're saying on the last thing about wholesale, changing the prices about wholesale. I'm just talking about the whole conditioning mindset about that you can't get higher prices when you can, because let's face it, Dave, it's in our minds, it's in our heads. You know,
A lot of it is.
we condition
Absolutely.
ourselves, like we already think about failing, like not going to be able to get the price we want, rather than compared to, you know, what we can. You know what I mean? It's like, is the glass halfway full or is it halfway empty? And it should be like that. You should be thinking, I can, no matter what you're doing, whether you're raising your prices or you're going to be getting that account or, you know, whatever you're going to open up a shop, whatever. But I think it's definitely a lot of mindset in this too, as well, this game.
Yes, absolutely. You've got to, I don't care. It's like you can watch the movie Major League.
Yeah.
And the pitcher can't get, he couldn't throw a strike if his life depended on it. You know, you've got to believe in yourself. And so that, you know, coach figured out a way to get him to believe in himself, start throwing strikes, you know?
That's right. That's right. Well, listen, guys, I'm going to wrap this up, Dave, because you just knowledge bombed the hell out of over here again. And you're one heck of a guy, man. Where can they find you if they wanted to chat with you? Maybe
they can find me in Phoenix.
Phoenix.
Just bring your shorts. It's hot.
Bring your Speedos, man, and your
Speedo.
and your 510 suntan lotion or sunblock, shall I say?
SPF 600. Yes.
Well,
I'm available online. I'm available on the phone. I can give out anything. My company, my shameless plug here. I'm Professional Dent Repair, and my website is www.prodentaz.com. My email is david@prodentaz.com. I have a Facebook page, Big Dent Dave. I am on Facebook as myself, as David Schaulat, Schaulat. I will take phone calls gladly. Please excuse me if I have to pardon myself while if it's the middle of the workday, but my phone number is 602-397-4201. And I'm more than happy to help anyone anytime. Please reach out.
Yeah, and there's a lot of good information like he dropped on the other podcast. It's 120% worth listening to. Plus he's got some do you have because I told you I didn't finish it all the way. I want to go back and listen to it, but real quick here, do you have price guides for wholesale, or you have a formula for price guides for that? Or
I have a wholesale formula that I like to use, and it's something, again, it's you've got to cater it to your own market so that you begin to fit in. You've got to be competitive to a certain extent. You can't come in and the market be bearing $50 a car and you come in and all of a sudden you want $80 a car. You're not going to get there. Yeah. You have to be within reason. But I have a formula and a system that I like to use where it defines what you're going to do for that $50 or for $58. You know, you can come in a few bucks higher. You're not going to get thrown out for $3 or $4 or $5. And if you are, then you need to reevaluate and treat it as a business and fire that. That's another issue.
Yeah.
and I say that with some passion, but yeah, I've got a defined structure where you're going to define what you're going to do at your base price, and you build from there. You can cater it to your market, your needs, your structure, your pricing thresholds, your capabilities as well. And so I define it much like any other guide. It could be the Hale chart. It could be the retail price guide. There's a size and a pricing structure that goes with it, but you outline it, you set it out first, and now you've set the ground rules for your relationship.
Dave, man, what a pleasure. I don't want to spoil anything, man. You teased them long enough. Go over to that podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast. Dave, I really appreciate you coming on. Thank you very much.
Mike, thank you for having me. Great to see you. Great to speak to you.